Good afternoon to those of you joining us here in LA and those tuning in from across the country. Here to kick off our afternoon session, welcome back HACR President and CEO, Sid Wilson.
All right, we're on the final stretch. This is our flagship forum that we do every year. It's our HACR CEO Roundtable. I'm so proud that HACR has been a CEO Roundtable every year since 2007, making this forum the longest continuous CEO gathering that we do in the country. Over 40 CEOs have participated in our HACR CEO Roundtable, including many of your CEOs that have participated over the years. We're so excited to have two CEOs that have been strong partners to HACR. We're going to have John Agwunobi, the CEO of Herbalife, and Rob Lynch, the CEO of Papa John's. And so we're excited, of course, for our long-time partnership because Comcast NBC Universal has been our partner of the CEO Roundtable since the very, very beginning. And so we're looking forward to once again having a representative from Comcast NBC Universal, Lolita Lopez from NBC4 Los Angeles, to moderate this session. So just some housekeeping items so that we know how to proceed with our CEO Roundtable. One is that if you have any questions, we ask that you raise your hand and one of our team members will give you an index card. And for the many of you that are watching virtually online, our team will be watching the chat feature. So if you have any questions there, just add them to the chat feature and we will make sure that we share this with our moderator. So with that, let's get started with our HACR CEO Roundtable. So please welcome to the stage. She is won multiple Emmy Awards for her many years of journalism excellence. She's been a journalist in New York, here in Los Angeles. Certainly someone that has just been an incredible leader, someone that many of you see her every single day on NBC4 Los Angeles. Please welcome our moderator for our HACR CEO Roundtable, Lolita Lopez.
Gracias. Thank you, Sid. Abrazamos. We always hug here. Bienvenidos. Hi. How is everyone? And at home or in your offices, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to take a seat here, join all of you guys. Such a pleasure to be here, and we have such an esteemed two gentlemen that are just amazing. We've been talking backstage about stuff. Just a little bit about myself. I'm Lolita Lopez, originally from Puerto Rico. I'm a Boricua. Apparently there's a bunch of, eso. There are lots of us here today. They brought them all together in Los Angeles and said, we're going to put them in one room. It's very unusual in Los Angeles. I did come from New York. I'm an investigative reporter here and anchor for the NBC4 in New York. I was actually a sports anchor / news anchor and an on-field reporter for the New York Mets. So I have kind of done a little bit of everything, and I love it. I love being a Latina who could say "pa la calle" when there was a home run and it actually hit the streets in the Bronx. So, but I'm here today because this is a great opportunity to talk about diversity and inclusion. It happens in all types of different employments, from media to we're going to learn all across the board, and it's very important. You know, that's one of the things I represent, not just in the way I look, but in the way I speak, and using my hands and my background. I feel like it's helped me in my career, and it hasn't always been easy. But now we are continuing to push the envelope forward, and I can't wait to introduce both of these gentlemen. So let's start with Dr. John Agwunobi. Dr. Agwunobi, please come on out. I feel like Vanna. Thank you so much. I know we've been seeing each other. Dr. John Agwunobi is from, of course, the chairman and CEO of Herbalife Nutrition, and also joining us on the stage is Rob Lynch, president and CEO of Papa John's. I gotta hang up. There you go. So let me tell you a little bit about them as they're settling in here. Rob has just completed his third year as president and chief executive officer of Papa John's International. of course, one of the world's largest pizza delivery companies. Shortly after his arrival at the company, he made a pledge to improve diversity at his company and the inclusion there at the Louisville, Kentucky-based organization. This includes an inclusion council that meets every month and discusses Hispanic people and other historically marginalized groups. He joined Papa John's from Arby's, a restaurant group where he rose from brand president and chief marketing officer, position he held from 2013 to 2017, to president. During his time at Arby's, he led the brand's turnaround to strong growth and profitability. Prior to Arby's, he served as vice president of marketing at Taco Bell. You're just making me hungry. He has more than 20 years combined experience in the quick service restaurant and consumer packaged good industries and held senior roles at H.J. Heinz Company and Procter & Gamble. Thank you so much, Rob, for being here today from Atlanta. And John is a Scottish-born Nigerian-American former public health official, pediatrician, and the CEO and executive chairman of Herbalife Nutrition, a global corporation that develops and sells dietary and nutritional supplements headquartered right here in Los Angeles. Actually, you just walked here, right?
I'll walk back.
Oh, you'll walk back. There you go. Yeah. It is kind of hot, so he had to be good. Okay. Formerly senior vice president of Walmart and president of the retailer's health and wellness business from 2007 to 2014. His career includes leadership roles in the public sector, most notably as Assistant Secretary of Health for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services from 2005 to 2007, where he was responsible for disease prevention and health promotion. So you know a lot about what we've been going through. Yeah. He oversaw the Centers for Disease Control, National Institutes of Health, the Food and Drug Administration, the Office of the U.S. Surgeon General, and numerous other public health offices and programs. So when I said we have two amazing people, I was not kidding. Thank you both for joining us. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, please. So let's get right to it, because the question was asked today of several of our guests, chief diversity officers. Now we'd like to ask you both. Who is responsible for diversity, equity, and inclusion in a company? And John, we'll start with you.
It's a question that really has, in my mind, an answer that perhaps isn't as precise as one might think. I don't think it's one person that's responsible. I actually don't even think it's just the responsibility of a company. I think it starts with society and the customer. If you, as a consumer, expect diversity, very quickly, businesses start to take on. They know who you are, they know what your preferences are, and businesses tend to reflect what their customers' needs and wants are. But within a company, clearly, I think it's every employee's job, it's every employee's role to be a proponent for diversity. Obviously, the executives and the CEO of a company have to help drive towards goals. But ultimately, I think even the board has to be involved. Our board, for example, has a dedicated committee. It's called the ESG Committee, Environment, Social, and Responsibility, and Governance, rather, ESG. And that committee, they hold the company accountable for certain targets and for driving towards certain goals. Within the company, we have committees. I chair the Diversity and Inclusion Committee for the global, we're in 95 countries, so it gets a little technical. But ultimately, I'll just summarize by saying, I think it's everyone's responsibility, and it shouldn't be top down. I actually think it should be bottom up. It should start with the consumer, with the customer. If you walk into a restaurant or into a business, ask the question. Diversity. Why are people of color behind the counter and people who are not of color are in front of the counter? Ask questions that cause the business to understand what your preferences are. It gradually starts to trickle up all the way through a good company.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, especially you were saying you're 95 different companies. It's diverse already, you know, in terms of your consumership. Yeah. Rob, do you agree with that, and how do you see it?
I absolutely agree that it's everyone's responsibility. I do believe that for it to permeate through the organization, there have to be principles, and there has to be infrastructure. And I think those investments in the infrastructure that allow for diversity to flourish, employee resource groups and other types of development opportunities that allow people throughout the organization to achieve their full potential, regardless of their background, their heritage, their race, what have you, gender. Those programs are created by the board and the executive team when they're committed to creating an organization that allows for all of that and that can benefit from it. As John mentioned, in today's, and whether it's domestically or we're only in 52 countries, John, so we'll work on catching up. I mean, you're a doctor, so you get like twice as many countries. But for that to really take hold, it has to be supported, encouraged, and built by the people that actually get to choose how we're going to invest in our organization.
So then how does it, and I'll start with you, Rob, how does it position within your company's, corporate strategy? Do you have like a chief officer? We talked about the Inclusion Council. I mean, does it kind of just trickle down?
When I first showed up at Papa John's, I think a lot of people in this room probably know where the company was before I got there. I was brought in to kind of turn the company around. And a lot of the efforts around diversity there were an attempt to prove that the company wasn't the way people thought they were. And it was an external effort. When I came in, I said, look, before we prove externally, we have to become internally what we aspire to be.
Right.
And, my goal is for everyone in this company. Oh, thank you. My goal was for everyone in our company to take pride in our company, regardless of who they were, what they looked like, where they came from. And I walked around those first couple weeks and I recognized that there were a lot of people hurting. And it was their job and a company they might have spent 10 years at, and they didn't feel like it was their company. Wow. And so we focused a lot on, DE&I, obviously diversity, equity, and inclusion. We focused a lot on inclusion. We wanted to create a culture and an environment where everybody could show up and be their best self every day. We're already a very diverse company. I mean, we have 4,000 restaurants across the country. We have a lot of people in a lot of different roles. But we wanted to create a culture that allowed every one of those people to feel like it was their company. And so that was really the impetus. And so we created, a lot of things at the board level and the management level, but we also created employee resource groups that allowed people within our company to come, and we did a series of real talks to just open up and talk about how they felt and whether it was good or bad or ugly, and some of it was ugly.
You heard a lot.
Yeah, and I think that really allowed some people to heal, and then also recognize that things were going to be different moving forward, and they can embrace some of the changes that we were implementing.
Yeah, and it's also hard because your company is so wide and so vast as well as yours, John, that you may not know what's happening at certain levels. That by having these moments, you really do learn a lot about these things. It seems.
Yeah, just piggybacking on what Rob was saying, ours was kind of a different kind of background to it, in that our company, when it was started 42 years ago, it was actually all about being an inclusive, diverse place where young entrepreneurs from all walks of life, any background, any racial or ethnic background could come and have a chance, right? That was the whole premise for why it was created. And so we've had this culture over time that, at least within our independent distributors, that was always geared towards the more diverse, the better. Now, to the stuff that Rob was saying, what we didn't have, because it was so natural, it was a historical thing, it was a legacy, what we didn't have was clear infrastructure within the company that promoted it within the kind of the employee base. It was just a given, it was taken. So what we've done very similarly is we've decided, you know what, it is our culture, it's always been our culture, but let's formalize it. And so we too have kind of started, whether it be the committee on the board or the DE&I council, the global council that I'm on, or regional councils that sit in every part of the world, or the resource groups that we've started to build as well. We've now started to really formalize that process so that it doesn't ever get taken for granted.
Yeah, and you both have talked about certain things that you've done, but I'd love, because sometimes it's nice to get a little bit more detail on things that you've done to give people ideas of maybe what they can take back home to their own departments and or corporations. So during your tenure as CEO, what DEI accomplishments are you particularly proud of? As specific as you can be, but then also what are some areas of growth, some places where you're like, we're probably not doing enough?
Well, let me start there.
Yeah.
Let me start on that point. I think it's clear, and I say this with a sense of kind of commitment, but more importantly, a sense of authenticity and reality that says we have to do more work on gender equality within every organization under our purview, especially the higher up you go in the organization. It doesn't happen by accident. There's years of kind of legacy propositions that are in the way, but I'm kind of proud of the fact that we've made some very real steps in the right direction recently and over the last few years, whether it's you know, the number one EVP in our office right now is a female that's been in the business for 26 years. She's probably, and I say this, you know, humbly, she's probably the single most kind of biggest expert on our business that we have. She's kind of fast tracking all the way to the top, I sense. But our CFO he's from Peru. Originally, his family's from Peru. And we have a number of other key executives, whether it's Zolema, who's our internal auditor, or a number of others that kind of sit in different places across our company. I think I'm more proud of the fact that we've now laid down an infrastructure to kind of piggyback on Rob's point that wasn't there before.
Right.
Because my hope is it's an infrastructure that, folks, you've all seen this. Every new CEO, I've been in the business for 7 years, CEO for 2. You all recognize that a lot of it is driven by personality, by the individual. A champion stands up and says, I'll drive us to the promised land. I think the sign of a mature organization is one that is driving there regardless of who's in charge. That where it's an automatic, it's built into the organization, and if I go or you go, Rob, it'll continue.
It'll still be there.
So I think I'm most proud of the fact that we've now begun to put in place this infrastructure that says, yes, it's who we are, but it's not about me or any given individual.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Rob, I mean, you even said yourself, I was coming in to right this ship, and one of the things that you did was that. I mean, what is something that you feel particularly proud of, but where do you feel there's room to grow?
So I believe in the power of development. Like, we can all go out and hire and cherry pick other people to build the kind of organization that we want, but I feel like, you know, when I started my career, as you mentioned, at Procter & Gamble, and that is a development organization. The power of their people drives everything that they do. And so we have amazing people within our organization, both in our restaurants, in our supply chain and distribution network, in our corporate facilities. And, you know, giving people opportunities is great, but they have to be prepared for those opportunities. A lot of folks go into our restaurants and start at you know, one of their first jobs, and they may aspire to a career and aspire to do a lot of things, but they haven't been prepared. So we've instituted a program that is one of the things I'm most proud of. It's called Dough and Degrees. Every one of our oh, that wasn't even supposed to be a joke. That's good. I need to use that more, yeah. Every one of our employees and every one of our franchisees' employees can go to college for free.
Wow.
And that wasn't there.
Are you serious?
That is powerful.
Wow.
Wow.
So, I mean, I'm the first of my family to go to college, and I worked my whole high school and college life to be able to go to college. And so these folks, a lot of them, they can't work. I mean, they can't go to college, you know, on their own time and work. They have families or they have other responsibilities. And so, you know, we've created a program that works around them, that allows them to go to college and to work. They have to maintain like a minimum of 20 hours a week, but we're very flexible. So, and it was so great, literally, you know, about 3 months ago, I guess it was, we started seeing the first graduates of that program.
Wow, that's awesome.
That was amazing. That was amazing.
Congratulations, that's great. It makes me think a little bit, so at NBC4, we have an internship program, and for many years it used to come from the schools that you would expect, right? And then we ended up being like, hey, you know, ELOC, PCC, there's some great students there. We're not looking in the right places. Sometimes it's where we're not looking. Yeah. And once you start looking, they bring these perspectives that are so amazing, but it's giving opportunity. And that's what you're doing. It's giving opportunity, both of you giving opportunity to people to be more flexible and be able to do this.
You know, it's interesting. At the entry level within our organization, a lot of diversity. It's just that for some reason over the years, that diversity narrows the higher up you go. I'm really proud of the fact that I'm chairman of the board in addition to being the CEO. And when I look out in a board meeting and I see 3 Hispanic board members, women, when I see the diversity at that level, I realize that, well, we have the top now, we have the bottom, I just need to bridge between the two.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
you know, and that bridging between the two, I think, requires not only what you've done, Rob, which is amazing, but also, I think, having pathways within the company where people can develop and go from one job to the next and see mentorship and support within an organization that is helping them get from here to there.
Well, let's talk about some more about the DI strategies, because I think that's interesting. How would you characterize a high value add relationship? And are there aspects of community partnerships you think are either overlooked or we're not taking full advantage of?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. In my kind of experience, I find that no one organization, no matter how good you are, can provide all the answers, right? Our relationship with HACR and with many others, the World Food Program, each relationship with an outside entity, a partner, allows us to leverage their expertise or their unique perspective. And it allows us as a company to grow. You know, it's funny, even within the company, if you think about it, mentoring one-on-one is important.
Right.
It offers intimacy, it offers the ability to develop unique relationships that help people grow in their careers. But I think it's even more powerful when you can have a person benefit from people of different colors, people of different backgrounds, people of different kind of experience sets as they are proceeding. Not just, by the way, not just the minority employee.
Absolutely.
But actually, even for employees from the majority, having them be mentored by people of color and people of different racial backgrounds as they are coming up in the system helps guarantee that when they get to the top, they'll understand the power and the importance of diversity. So our relationships with outside entities, whether it be LULAC or others, are all kind of structured to bring something to us that we don't have naturally internally, and it helps enrich our environment as well.
Right. And we talk about community partnerships, but also, Rob, you know, John hit on this, and I wanted to come to you. There's a governance level, right? Getting, you know, the right people and the right diversity at that level. How do you feel CEO can advocate for increased diversity there, and who's responsible to infuse diversity at that level?
Yeah, I mean, you know, governance is all about really oversight / measurement. And I'm a big believer that you get what you measure. And so, you know, in the last year, we've instituted an ESG metric into our executive compensation model, right? And so, you know, that includes both environmental targets and goals, sustainability targets and goals, which, you know, essentially, or social target and goals, which essentially our DEI function kind of really is the heart and soul of, and then our governance piece, which is, you know, corporate governance. So as you build these metrics into executive compensation, there's no way for it to hide. There's no way for it not to be a part of the process. And so, you know, we worked really hard with our board to determine what the right KPIs were and to make sure that they were implemented in a way that, you know, was encouraging for the people that were being compensated or not being compensated versus scary, because some, like you said, the top of the organization typically has the principles and the values, and the bottom of the organization typically represents the highest, the most diverse group. It's kind of how things get lost in the middle, right? So if you make people focus on it and their compensation is partially driven by it, that tends to make everyone pay attention. Yeah. So that's how we've really made sure that it is at the highest level focus throughout our company governance.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
If I might just add.
Yeah, please.
By the way, we haven't come quite that far, but I think it's important. I think leadership within an organization should be incented in very tangible ways for progress, for making progress. But I also think that it's important that it not just be about numbers. It has to be about culture and linking the importance of diversity to the outcomes of the broader organization. It's good business to have a diverse, supportive organization. It shouldn't just be personally good for me and my pocketbook, although I think that helps drive behavior without a doubt. I think the challenge is it has to be much broader than that. It can't just be about targets and about numbers. It has to be about a deep-seated, authentic sense within a company that diversity will drive us towards our goals. So it has to be a part of the culture. And that takes time, and it takes persistent kind of pounding away at the message and having real, as you mentioned, having real life conversations with every level of your organization every day about the importance. It's not just something that is layered on from the outside.
Right.
It has to be something that everybody feels like they own.
It's almost like a value system.
A value
within your
system,
like a family value system that we have with
Exactly.
our families at home and what we appreciate. You know, even in the Latino culture, what fuels us, what makes us feel like family might be different than another culture. How do you bring all of that together within the places that you work?
Exactly.
Usually around food for me, so that makes sense. But let's talk about Hispanic inclusion. That's why we're here. And I wanted to start with you, John. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your company as a stakeholder and partner with the Hispanic community? And where has the company made the most advancements, and where do you feel there's an opportunity in the future?
Well, just for background, there are kind of three key stakeholders at play here. One is our customers, right, on the outside. Within the company, we have 2 stakeholder groups. We have our distributors, independent distributors who take our products and sell it to the customers. And then we have our employees who help manufacture, who help with marketing and other kind of support services. And it's clear that we have a long way to go when it comes to achieving our goals, our dreams for diversity, and especially for Hispanic, across all 3 stakeholder groups. Our employees, for example, roughly a third of them are Latino. Our distributors, about 27, 28% on any given day. And our customer base is actually much more diverse, as one would expect. You know, going to where I would rank us, and I'm going to say this because I'm trying to be as authentic as I possibly can with all of you, I'm not happy with where we are. I would say we're a 7 out of 10. We've come a long way, but we have so much more to kind of chase after and to go for.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of work to do.
And Rob, I don't know if you want to piggyback on that, but also looking at the ideas, DEI is a differentiator in recruitment and retention and the advancement of, you know, Hispanic talent within your company. How are you approaching that?
So that's a great question. I mean, we have really kind of transformed our entire approach. So we moved our headquarters from Louisville to Atlanta, and a lot of that was driven by our desire to be able to, at the corporate level, be able to tap into a much more diverse population to fill jobs. Right. And every one of our metrics has, you know, that we track has changed dramatically, and that was kind of the intent. And it's good to see that it's come to fruition. But I would put us, I mean, I think we're just getting started. I would put us at a 5. Wow. You know, like I said, we have a lot of Spanish-speaking and Hispanic employees, primarily at the restaurant level or just above restaurant level. We have not done a good enough job transitioning those talented people that a lot of them have spent 5, 10, 15 years with the company into larger roles. And that's part of the reason why we've, you know, instituted these training and college education programs, because if you go, you know, you have the best of intentions. If you go and take people who do a great job in the role that they're in, and you try to transition them into a new role and they're not prepared for that, you're setting them up to fail. And when they fail, it's not only their failure, it's your failure, and that
reinforces the wrong.
Yeah, and it's evidenced across the organization, and people that look like them or come from the same background will say, well, you know, we just can't make it. And so, you know, what we're really trying to do is make sure that our ability to continue to promote people through the organization is not limited by how well we've prepared them. And so that's what we're really focused on, is that preparation, that training, that development that's going to allow them to come in and be directors, vice presidents, or even higher in our organization.
Not to use a sports, but I see it, be it, right? If you see something, we say it all the time. I was a very short outside hitter in volleyball. And I remember coach being like, if you can see it, someone's going to see you. And like one day, and I'm like, okay, I believe in myself. Like, but it is this belief of being able to do something once you've seen someone else kind of go through it, which is why being so authentic, right? When you are in these places, I remember I had someone offer me a job, but the job only came if I permanently straightened my hair. And I was like, no, thank you. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm not that old, people. So this like happened, yeah. But those things matter, right? Like who you are authentically and who people allow you to be authentically within your spaces is really important. So for both of you, kudos to that. And I was going to say, I was looking at the HACR report. You know, when we talk about Hispanic inclusion, it's hard because after the pandemic, a lot of Hispanics have left businesses, and mainly a lot of Latina women have been, you know, taken on new roles because of where we are post-pandemic. So I want to talk about that for a little bit, you know, visioning, redesign, implementation processes about this new normal post-pandemic world. What is your approach and what types of changes are you most excited about? I always start with the good.
You know, it's interesting. Both Rob and I, we both started he a little bit before me, 6 months before me, but we started as CEOs of our companies in and around the pandemic. I was March 20. I think, Rob, you were saying you were late September 19.
Yeah.
So we've cut our teeth during the pandemic, and you know, I'm not sure that I fully understand what it looks like beyond.
I was going to say, where are we right now?
But, there's been no normalcy.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I should use air quotes every time I use.
So it's not, for me, it's not the new normal. Maybe it's just what's the next normal.
What's the next?
Right? What is this? Where does this go?
Where's the stage?
But you know, it's funny. We look at kind of metrics. Metrics are an important part of every CEO's job, is to kind of, where are we? Where do we want to go? And how are we going to get there? It's a part of the daily kind of discussion. And I was looking at we have GOAT standards that we look at for our diversity numbers. And it was interesting, for example, the percent of female executives in a company actually dropped for the industry as during the pandemic, as people, you know, were working from home and have now realized, I'm not going back to work. I'm gonna stay out of the workforce. I do think that as we kind of come out of the storm that was the pandemic, there are a lot of things that have changed. I think as companies, we need to be a little more sensitive to, or at least a little more flexible in terms of what do we have to do in order to be more supportive of a diverse workforce. You know, Rob was telling me backstage, or he just said it now as well, that he actually they moved the headquarters of their company from one city to another, in part to become more diverse and to allow themselves access to a more diverse talent pool. Right. I think in the same way as we've come out of the pandemic, we have to ask ourselves, what are the standards that we need to change in order to allow a more diverse workforce to participate in what we offer? And so we're still kind of trying to figure this out a little bit. I don't know that anyone has the perfect answer, but I do know this, that it starts with us being willing to change. And if there's one thing I think I've learned personally from the pandemic is you can be successful and do it in a completely different way. Right. I think the pandemic's shown us that as well.
And it's, you know, both of you are amazing communicators, so it's also like communicating that across the board. I mean, Rob, same question to you. What are some of the things that you're either excited about, you know, post-pandemic, new normal world, but also some of the challenges too? Like, I'll give an example before you answer. In media, like, there was no post or pre-pandemic. We were in the field the whole time, right? And so when certain parts of our group got to work from home and other parts of our groups were in the field and working, there was a dynamic there that had to readjust even within our system. Our own groups being like, well, hey, we've been doing this since the beginning. You guys want to come back? Like, work with us. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
And so like that's also part of that sort of larger discussion now that we move forward of being, you know, cognizant of everyone, right? I guess, so anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we had the same challenge. I mean, our restaurants never shut down.
Yeah.
And all of the services that go into supporting our restaurants to serve the communities. I mean, you think about it, in March and April of 2020, people weren't leaving their houses.
I was going to say, we needed your pizzas more.
I mean, and you know, you're so right, and that was what inspired me when we were going through those times, because I said, life has been disrupted for everyone, and everyone's normal is no longer normal, and I don't know about you, I can only eat so much bologna, so, or you know, cold cuts, whatever, you know. And so our job became, we are going to deliver food to families that have been, nothing's been normal for them, and we're going to return a sense of normalcy. You know, pizza is a very unique food. It's almost the only food that you almost never eat by yourself. It's a communal experience, and it's typically a joyful experience that is eaten at your favorite time, whether it's movie night or sleepovers or sporting occasions. So our company purpose is to bring people together through pizza. And it was never needed more than that, to bring families back together for some sense of normalcy. And I will tell you, you know, with all of our employees out there during the pandemic, the population that absolutely got hit the hardest, particularly when, you know, we had gotten through summer, was our female population, and I think in general across the country, because schools weren't open, and the kids couldn't go back to school, and everyone knows who the burden falls to when the kids aren't in school, right? Moms. So, you know, we did our best to try to address that and be flexible, and even now, you know, as we've invited our corporate employees back, you know, we have flexibility. It's 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week, and I've made it a point to our team that if people need special, you know, accommodations to meet the needs of their unique situation, like, we need to be flexible about that. And I don't think you're going to be able moving forward to tap into the best talent and create the kind of diverse, particularly the gender diversity, which I'm super proud of. 50% of our executive team is female. 50% of our board is female. You know, we're one of only 3 Fortune 1000 companies that have a Latina on our board. Wow. So, you know, there's a lot to be proud of, but we can always get better. And in order to continue to get better, we have to find new ways to deal with the changes that we're facing.
And you know, we need a pizza. We also need a nutrition. I feel a lot of people found that role too. Like, how do you, I don't know if capitalize is the right word, but how do you maximize what you might have learned that's good about what happened during this time and kind of push that forward in many ways? We're talking not just in the business part of it, but also in the things with inclusion that you might have learned along that way.
There are 2 things that we do for the world as a company. The first is we manufacture high quality, great nutritious products, protein shakes, vitamins, fish oil, all the stuff that you would typically think of that would make you healthier. The second thing is we provide young, sometimes not so young individuals the opportunity to start a business. It's all about entrepreneurship. And so those are the 2 main things that we bring. And as you can imagine, during the pandemic, when people were locked down, number one, they were scared about the virus, and so they were like, oh, I need to eat better, I need to eat healthy, I need some vitamins, I need some fish oil, I need some protein. So there was a lot of folks that were, demand for healthy nutrition was going up, even as demand for pizza.
It was simultaneous.
By the way, we do weight management as well, but put that off to one side.
I'll get your card afterwards.
But on the other side, and this was actually, I think, for us was particularly interesting to see, was as people were locked down at home, they started to think about doing getting a little extra income on the side. They were working on their computers and looking for different ways to kind of help support their families, and many turned to us. Now, all good, right? More nutritious, more demand for nutrition, for healthy nutrition, more demand for gig economy type small businesses, a little extra income on the side. That was going in. But then the pandemic went away, and now people are going back to their old lives, going back to their jobs, going back to school. And although it's normal, it's actually not, because some of the stuff carried forward from the pandemic, Zoom and things like that, kind of carried into the new world. And So we're having, I guess what I'm saying is, that I think what it's forced us as a company to do is to be flexible. And to understand that these ups and downs, our job is to provide more when more is needed and drop down when it's not, and be just there for both sides of that kind of up and down of the pandemic. It was a bit of a mountain climb and then kind of a descent back into normalcy. We've learned, I think, when all is said and done, that the world changes around you. And as a company, your job is not to try to keep it the same. As a CEO, my job is to try to help this organization flex and move in support of our customers and our independent distributors.
Yeah, it's like a rubber band. You're pulling it in all different directions, but it's still trying to keep that unity together. Rob, the same for you? I mean, do you feel that there's much that you've learned moving forward on certain things that you can do or that are either working or maybe not working in terms of like where you would want to go from where we are right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just point back to the communities that we've created with our resource groups. I mean, they help us to understand those changing needs internally within our company, and then we're able to take that and facilitate those needs to the best of our abilities. We've also now, you mentioned all the changes in technology, and maybe this was something 3 or 4 years ago, and I just, was not technology advanced. But we've always had a hard time communicating with our frontline workers. And we've created now some communication channels through everyone's phone where, it's called Yammer. I don't know if people are familiar with it.
Yeah.
That's probably like 5 years old, right? I feel like it's the greatest new thing we ever had. So. But,
Have you tried Facebook? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, if you're on Facebook, then you're pretty old too.
It's true. It's true. I have an AOL email account.
Oh, there you go. Oh, man. We're taking it way back.
Oh, my gosh. Where was I?
Yammering. We were yammering.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to be able to just get on that channel and see all of our folks communicating with each other. And some of it's kind of executional, and they're getting on and saying, hey, we ran out of pepperoni today. Somebody's got to fix this. But some of it is like really insightful around things that are affecting our teams that we probably wouldn't know. And, it's hard to get information through 12 levels. Because at some point, somebody's like, I don't want my boss to know that this is happening. And so it doesn't make it to me. But that is a direct channel. It's also a direct channel for me to communicate with them and really show them the great things that their company is doing to support them and support our communities so that they can take pride in that. And they can find fulfillment above and beyond just coming to work every day. So I'm glad after, 10 years I've been able to figure that channel out.
No, that's great. Yammer, Slack, different things. But
we're in California, so that's just normal stuff out here.
Yeah, that's everything does. Well, you both are the CEO newbies, so putting that hat on, I wanted to look at, because a lot of folks here don't do what you do, right? They're not in the pizza business, they're not in the nutrition business, but they are in corporate America, in that business. So where do you think that, corporate America needs to push past the status quo? Not just in the way companies run, but why we're here, an inclusion of Hispanics and other marginalized groups or traditionally marginalized groups.
Yeah, I think we've touched on a lot of it already in our conversation here today. But just for emphasis, I would say, one, I think we'll know we're there when it's not about numbers. We'll know we're there when it's being driven by customers, where there's an expectation that says, no, I only buy from companies that are diverse. I only do business with partners that are diverse. It's where you are the exception when you are not an organization
that does that.
I think by the way, I feel heartened and candidly very optimistic about the fact that that journey has long since started. I think to some degree our organization is a little bit late, but we're on the move now. I'm sensing that there's more work to be done in the broader corporate world, clearly, but there's a march that has started. And I'm an optimist that says over time we'll get there. There's lots of evidence of that. But I do think that for me personally, I look forward to a day where it's about just, it's normal, it's a part of the culture, it's demanded by our customers, by our consumers, and it isn't a choice, it's not an option.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. I feel like now, even in shopping, I will look to see if something's a small business or something is from a certain part of the city, or I can get coffee from this part. Why not go try a woman-owned business, right?
It's interesting, even in hiring and in interviewing, I always try to give the person I'm interviewing an opportunity to interview me. And increasingly, the questions that I'm being asked are, tell me a little bit about your DEI strategy. Or
really?
What are you doing on the environment as a company? I want to know. People, the young talent of today asks questions that they pick up in their communities, in their families, and that is spreading up into the culture of organizations over time.
Isn't that interesting? And Rob, are you feeling the same way, that you are approaching a talent pool that's a little bit different? It's coming at it a little differently, but also for you, where do you think that American corporations need to be successful in not just recruiting great, diverse talent, but, you know, since we're here, Hispanic inclusion?
I think corporations can be an unbelievable force for good. You know, we have 120,000 employees across our network, but it doesn't stop there. Their families, their social networks, not Facebook, but like the people they actually hang out with.
Real life to life conversations?
You know, their churches, their sports groups, our employees should be our biggest advocates. They should be the people that take what we believe and what we stand for and propagate that through a much larger audience than I can ever do sitting here, or my team can ever do, you know, just speaking to different groups. I mean, so when you have created a culture that is, you know, to John's point, it's just who we are. It's just what we believe, and people believe that and feel that. They reach out, and my 120,000 employees turns into 1 million people that are espousing those principles and espousing those values. And so, you know, I think that is part of our responsibility. And to answer the second piece of it, that is what can draw people to you. I mean, over the last year, we have had so many people come to our company. We got to Atlanta, and the offices were closed, and we had a lot of people who didn't come from Louisville, didn't want to move, and we had to hire 200 people in 6 months. We hired 200 you know, executive level people in 6 months, and I was so proud of that because it was an indication of how far we'd come. You know, people wanted to be a part of what we were doing, and a large piece of that was all of the work that we had done on diversity and inclusion. And you know, you can stand up and you can talk about it. Oh, we're so great! Look at all the things we've done. But when people are coming to your company and want to be a part of that, that is the true acid test.
And that's the type of thing that continues to develop. You know, that's the type of thing that people can take home. One negative comment will always supersede, right? A bunch of positives. So you need those positive moments to make a company feel like we're living proof of what we're saying. And if it's not, here's the other question: if it's not, then be prepared as CEOs to make a change, make a difference, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're describing is this natural momentum. When you're on the right path and people see it, people try to get on with you, people start to drive it, and it starts to kind of push you in the direction that you were trying to go in anyway. But it's
hard to get that ball rolling.
It's hard to get the ball, yeah, exactly.
Well, I have just gotten some questions. This is like breaking news. I just got some questions.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, right? On the spot from folks here. So thank you so much for giving us these questions. And so I have a couple here. So let's start with this one from a project manager at Chevron. Many of us serve and lead our employee resource groups, ERGs. We have recently seen companies provide stock options or cash stipends to ERGs as a reward. How are you rewarding and recognizing ERG leadership and involvement at your organizations? Thank you for that question.
Yeah, that's a great question. We haven't, as a company, gone as far as rewarding individuals for either leading or participating on our ERGs. They're still entirely voluntary. Recognition, on the other hand, we try as much as we possibly can to kind of lift up not only the members, by highlighting them on our intranet site, but also the leaders, and specifically by having them report out to myself and the executive committee or even to the board so that they're given the exposure for their leadership. But we haven't yet started rewarding. It's an interesting concept.
How about you, Rob?
That's a great idea. You know, I'm gonna take that one back.
This project manager's like,
Yeah.
and you can credit this person here.
It's interesting.
No, it's good. It's interesting because I have a daughter who's now in college, but I remember like incentivizing doesn't have to always be a negative, right? I remember incentivizing her since she was a child to get her to potty train, but now even to get her to do things as an 18-year-old, they can be rewarding things in the right ways, and so I think that speaks to that. So thank you so much. To both, you speak on the role of diversity, equity, and inclusion as board infrastructure rather than a CDO role that has a broad range and responsibility. Why is that role not positioned the same as your, let's say, CFO or CMO roles?
Yeah, so in my organization, and specifically our Chief Human Resource Officer is a gentleman of color, and he joined the company around the same time I did, or at least joined the executive suite around the same time I did, and serves in that role of being the champion for the infrastructure that we've built. However, once again, we believed when we started out down this path that it needed to be everyone's responsibility, not just a particular individual, but me or a member of the board, but it had to be something that we wanted every single person in the company to kind of get behind. Once again, we have the advantage that our company was kind of built on a set of principles that said, this is a place where people of this notion of from any background, from any place, you can come and be welcomed and safe in our organization. That was always kind of the principle, but building it into the company itself and the employees was the step we hadn't done. So we don't have a single individual that's responsible for it. We hold everyone accountable for it.
That makes sense. Rob?
You know, I couldn't agree with you more that it's everyone's responsibility. We do have a chief people and diversity officer who leads the development of the programming and the infrastructure and the partnerships and all the things that we need to do. And then we have a vice president of diversity who focuses only on that. And then we have 3 directors of diversity, and then we have probably, I don't know, 3, 4, or 5 managers. So we have an infrastructure that focuses both internally and externally, making sure that our company is walking the talk. We live by the values that we espouse, but then also making sure that we have the right partnerships and the right external relationships that allow that work to be recognized, so that our company is recognized as a company that does that, but also that creates partnerships that, like this with HACR, where I can come back to the organization and I can say, I just flew out to California to have a great discussion about diversity and Hispanic inclusion, and that can hopefully doesn't just give our Hispanic employees pride, but gives everyone a sense of pride that we're making these commitments. We're investing in these relationships because it's important.
Absolutely. Well, we did get this question that says that they admire your passions for DEI, both of you. What was the catalyst in your life that created your commitment to the DEI initiatives that you have?
Can I get personal?
Yes, that's what I think they want to get deep right now. This is like the deep one.
I'm going to warn you, though, if you get personal, I'm a crier. So I might have to step off stage.
I'll jabber you. Like.
Yeah. So my father is black. He's African. And my mother is white. She's from Scotland. And I won't say who, but one was entirely conservative and the other was entirely liberal, about as extreme. And they, as we were growing up, they gave us kind of these, they were guardrails. You know, you can't go further right than one or further left than the other, but you can do whatever you want.
In that middle ground.
And it was a safe place. And I always grew up in that environment, feeling and believing that your color, your ethnic background, your religion was irrelevant. What was important was, did you love each other? Did you care for each other? Did you support each other? And so I kind of grew up in that space. Mm-hmm. And then I started growing up in my career and realizing that it didn't quite work that way in the corporate world and in the rest of the world. So for me, it's a very personal passion, one that says everyone should have an opportunity to win. By the way, I'm a competitor. I like to win, and I believe the reward is in the winning. It's not about money necessarily for me. It's about racing and winning, and being able to just kind of stand there and say, look what I did. Right. Look what we did. Look what our team has done together. Mm-hmm. Look at the impact that we're having. And I don't want a person's background or lack of a background to get in the way. I'll just end by saying, you know, our company was built on that principle, as I've said many times, which said it doesn't matter where you start, you should have the ability to win. And it's one of the reasons I joined the company. So I'm passionate about it. It's the right company for me because it fights for that principle, and I'm going to fight for it as long as I'm.
And I feel like you're winning already. Yes. Oh yeah, you can go. Rob, so you didn't cry, that's fine.
But I'll cry.
Well, I might start crying when I tell my story, so I'm not off the hook yet. No. I have a complete opposite story. I grew up in a very blue-collar, almost all-white part of a city that wasn't very diverse. So I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and go Steelers. Yeah. and you know, I didn't have a ton of exposure to a lot of different ethnicities and races and people on a regular basis. And I was so fortunate that when I went through school and I started my MBA and I got an internship at Procter & Gamble. And I went there, and the person that sat next to me was an African-American woman, a black woman from Michigan. And it was the first time in my life that I had such a close relationship with someone like that. And she was amazing, and she had such an impact on me, and it transformed me. It made me such a believer in, like, we could come from such different backgrounds and sit next to each other and work together and do amazing work together. I was like, this is how it should be. And I've worked my entire career everywhere I've been to try and do that. Like, almost before it was, you know, Procter & Gamble was ahead of its time trying to promote diversity. We had all kinds of support and employee resource groups back then. But, you know, then when you go to a lot of these other companies, they don't have that infrastructure. And so that had such a profound impact on me that everywhere I've gone, I've tried to help facilitate that, tried to help build that. And that's why when I came to Papa John's, that was like, you mentioned the reason why you came to Herbalife, because it was so diverse. I came for the exact opposite reason. And I looked at something that was broken and said, oh my gosh, how many times in my career am I going to have an opportunity to go and do something really amazing to make the world a better place? I know that sounds so...
No. We should all think that way.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, you know, make the world a better place, but I really felt it. I really felt like if we could accomplish what we had to accomplish, you could truly impact so many people's lives in a positive way. And so...
We're going to hug backstage.
Yes.
I got your help.
Group hug, group hug. So I actually love to leave a conversation with a takeaway, but this question is a pretty good takeaway. So it's from Stacy in our audience. Thank you so much. And it's about people moving into a new upward level role. A takeaway for someone who is moving up now as a manager, maybe becoming a CEO. What should be their first order of business?
Ooh, yeah. The reason I'm going to hesitate a little bit as I start is because no one but you knows what your background is, what your history is, what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And there is no magic formula that I can give you or a magic piece of advice that will allow you to break through every circumstance and get to where you want to be. But I will say this. I've lived this myself personally as the first, person of color in this setting or in that setting along the way. Usually I'm the youngest guy in the room, although that's beginning to change. But there was a time where that was my difference. So this would be my advice. Don't wear your difference as if that's what matters. What matters is your strength, who you are as an individual, what you bring to the table. It doesn't come with the amount of melanin in your skin or the way you roll your R's when you speak. It doesn't come with where you were born or who your parents are. It comes from your experience in life. And by the way, yes, your racial and ethnic background may help fuel that experience set that you have. It may be an integral part of your experience over the course of your career. But I would just urge you to enter every room with the confidence that your experience will allow you to figure out answers just like the person next to you.
Yeah.
Judgment is judgment, no matter what your background. And in fact, the more diverse your background, the more likely you are going to be able to figure out a good, solid answer to every problem that you encounter. But it's not about, sometimes I kind of hesitate as I say this, but I've seen it. Sometimes people wear their color as if it's their suit. And it becomes the reason they're winning or the reason they didn't win. When in actual fact, it's the fact that your judgment was off repeatedly is the reason you didn't win. And you didn't bring your experience and your background when making your decisions. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's just more than that. And I see where you're going. So, Rob, you have the ability of doing this in 30 seconds or less.
Got it.
Got it.
Be true to yourself. Like, be who you are. What you said is so powerful. Don't let that, your external or appearance or your background or your ethnicity define you, but let it enhance you.
Yeah.
Be who you are.
Yeah.
And you know what? If your organization doesn't support you and doesn't want you to be who you are, then it's probably not the right organization.
Absolutely, yeah. You can see I kept my hair curly, so I'm in the right place. Thank you, NBC4. And thank you, Rob Lynch, President and CEO of Papa John's, Dr. John Agwunobi. Thank you so much of Herbalife Nutrition. We need more pizza and more protein shakes in my life.
That's right.
I appreciate you all for being here. Thank you so very much to HACR for having this and making sure that we all have this moment to speak on what's really important and making us all come together. So thank you so much. I think Sid is up next.
An applause, but one more applause for Lolita Lopez from NBC4 LA, John Agwunobi, CEO of Herbalife, and Rob Lynch, CEO of Papa John's. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One thing that you also hear that both of them have Latinos on their board of directors, and so just among the examples that we continue to promote as we advance Hispanic inclusion in corporate America. And again, we know how busy CEOs are. You have multi-billion-dollar operations in multiple countries, so to be here with us, it means a lot to us. So again, Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So this concludes the programmatic part of our HACR Symposium, the Power of Hispanic Inclusion. We hope these 2 days have been an empowering experience for all of you here and watching virtually around the country and around the world, actually. But we know that we have also a great evening tonight. Tonight is when we will have our Corporate Inclusion Index Awards dinner, and where we will be recognizing the 5-star companies that participated in our HACR Corporate Inclusion Index. But we think about what we've had these last 2 days. 2 great speakers, between Sylvia that's her last name already. From Ford Motor Company, of course, last lunch yesterday, with 2 Latinas that are such incredibly powerful leaders. So many sessions. Our Chief Diversity Officers Roundtable that we had this morning. So many great sessions that we've had these 2 days. So we certainly welcome you to make sure you're giving us feedback as to what we're doing. And make sure you join us when we bring our HACR Symposium to the Big Apple, to Times Square. We're going to be in New York City next year. So we hope you join us there. Make sure you stay connected with us. Continue to share that social media, because tonight at our HACR Corporate Inclusion Index Awards dinner, somebody is going to win a 3-day, 2-night vacation at Caesars. So with that, we will have our reception in the foyer out here, and then the doors will open at 7 o'clock. We look forward to having you with us. Thank you so much, and thank you for participating in our flagship forum, the HACR CEO Roundtable, with John Agwunobi and Rob Lynch and Lolita Lopez. Thank you all so much. We'll see you at reception.
Thank you. Thank you.